the knowledge that you're going to gather from here, hopefully is going to convince you to transition into raw vegan lifestyle, or if you are into this path, to continue into it. I've been a raw vegan myself since January 1st, 2018, and I don't see why I should change, my way of living. I mean, I'm RawVeganDoctor, and that's my nickname. And also, some of the things that I want to let you know is that in the raw vegan movement, you're going to see a lot of people that are into this purist mindset, right? They are married with labels. Like they say, oh my God, if I'm not raw vegan, I'm probably missing out. If I'm not a raw vegan 100%, I'm not pure. Or if I eat a cooked carrot or a cooked piece of something, a vegetable, I'm gonna get intoxicated, or my detox is gonna stop, or things like that. Those are misconceptions, but I mean, I don't have time to debunk all those myths that we face, from the natural hygiene community. Because, to be honest with you, the natural hygiene community is doing a lot of good work in terms of explaining this natural way of living, this natural way of eating, which is the healthiest for humanity. But if I start, this naturopath is wrong with that, or they're wrong with that, I don't see the purpose. I think they're doing more good than bad by promoting this lifestyle. But I just want to let you know that this purist mindset, that if you are not 100% raw vegan, has to disappear. I suffer a lot personally when I was trying to go raw vegan. It took me a couple of years to finally make the commitment. And it's just a personal choice. At this moment, if I choose to have something cooked and it's vegan, I mean, obviously I'm vegan for ethical principles, but I'm raw vegan because I feel at my best this way. So if one day I choose to eat something cooked, I don't hit myself so hard in my chest. I don't punch myself. So in the chat, somebody's, okay, John, thank you for being here. I don't know if you have moderator privileges, but let's see. Anyways, so let's start with this. A disclaimer, this content is obviously not intended for to substitute medical advice. Always seek advice from your health professional. So this is an explanation that I always like to give in terms of wherever you want to approach this lifestyle, you have the creationism or you have evolution in terms of what should we eat as humans. So if you believe in God, if you believe in the Bible, if you believe in Adam and Eve, God gave the order for that first couple to eat everything that the earth produced, right? The plants from like the herbs, the fruits from the trees, etc. So that's your first answer. What is the right diet for humans? Is a raw vegan diet, directly from the plants, directly from the fruits, directly from the trees and from the earth. If you are an atheist or an agnostic or you follow a different religion, you can go to the evolution point of explaining things, the origin of man. And in order for life to appear on earth, we have definitely to have the right conditions. And those right conditions were humidity, the right temperature, the right sunlight. And that basically leads us to think that life originated in the tropics, right? So we have the primitive broth. That's one of the theories, that we needed nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. And those four primordial elements created the first unicellular organisms, the first bacteria. And then, you have, that's the phylogenetic tree, that circle that you see over there. So we evolved basically, and now we achieved the mammal stage, and we are all mammals. Let's see if this is going okay, because I cannot see any, I don't see anyone. Participants, I think all of them are accepted. Okay. Okay, so if you have, oh, finally I can see everyone, perfect. So John, if you have some issues, can you just let me know? You are unmuted now. Just interrupt me, okay?
You were doing great. And
okay, thank you. Perfect.
Don't stop.
All right. Perfect. So we are in this, part of the explanation now. From following the line of creationism, we have another Bible passage, right? Like in the prophets, Daniel, He was a very young man, and when Israelites were transferred to Babylon, they were selected because they were young and handsome and strong, and they were invited to the king's palace and to the king's special group of people, and they were offered the meals from the king directly, right? And they refused to do that because the king obviously ate cheeses, probably wine, probably meat. And Daniel said, we wise young men, we're not going to eat that, and we are going to eat legumes only. So that gives you an example that probably in the past, the people ate a plant-based diet. So we have that example also in the New Testament. We have like some passages in, I think, Peter or Paul in some of the letters. They say, Jesus said that everything should be blessed, and if everything is clean, if you blessed it. But some people believe that legumes are the way that we should be eating. So still, in those times, people were vegans probably. And following the other line of thought, in the evolution of things, if we transfer ourselves back to centuries or millennials ago, millions of years ago, who knows? There is a lot of controversy how many years we have here on Earth according to the evolution. We notice that everything started in the tropics, and from there, migration and adaptation happened. So if we started evolving in the tropics, it makes sense that our diet is tropical fruit, everything that is directly heated by the sunlight. So that's another way of looking at things. And this chart, I don't know the author, but I think this is a wonderful chart. Probably some of you have seen it before. On the first column, the left column, we have carnivores. Those are carnivores by definition. Their mouth opens only on one direction, up and down. They don't have the circle range of motion, the circular range of motion that humans have, but they only like bite and bite with those canines and all this very, very, very pointy teeth that they have. And they're designed to eat meat. So you can see their vision, they don't see full color range compared to us on the right column. Our biochemistry, their brain is fueled by fats and proteins. In our spectrum, we are fueled by glycogen. And a RawVegan diet, especially fruit diet, is only glucose and fructose and simple sugars. The jaw type, you have a lower jaw embedded inside the upper jaw, and we have upper jaw sits on the bottom of the jaw. So different anatomical explanations that puts us in the place close to the frugivores, which are the bonobos, the gorillas, chimpanzees, etc. But bonobos are our closest relatives. So we have very, very similar teeth to the frugivores. We are frugivores as well, but we can also incorporate leafy greens, nuts and seeds. The chart says legumes because that's part of our adaptation to the environment, and the ingestion of legumes happened when we discover agriculture. But before, we are perfectly suitable to eat just from the tree. And we have different, characteristics. This is going to be saved on Facebook, so you can take a look at this chart. And you can also Google it. Just put, differences between the teeth of carnivores and humans and frugivores, and this chart is going to show up. So again, I don't know the author, but it's awesome. Again, we can make a lot of anatomical comparisons. Like we don't have sharp claws like a lion. We have flattened nails. We cannot devour an animal with our weak hands. We have hands to grasp the fruit, to climb the trees, etc. Let's see, somebody's in the chat. I have that chart. Okay, excellent. Yeah, this chart is very famous. And again, if we see the little map in the blue there, we see a line, that's the equator. And then from there are different theories from where man originated and the human migration, where it happened. So I'm not going to discuss if we were originally a single continent or if there were multiple foci of where life originated. The theory that is most commonly accepted is that we originated in the sub-Saharan African area, probably in part of Asia, probably in some islands. But what we know is that everything started in the tropics, and from there, humans migrated to the north and to the south. And obviously, with the migration, we had to adapt to different climates. So as soon as we move away from the tropics, we were definitely more vulnerable. We had to invent agriculture. We have to cover ourselves. We have to discover fire. We have to discover agriculture and hide in caves and raise animals and get milk and all these things. And obviously we can eat everything under the sun, just like we are doing right now, or in the past that we were doing, and we can even eat rocks and probably we'll get some nutrition out of that. But that doesn't mean that it's the ideal diet. And that's the message I want to convey today. All right, so some of the arguments of the carnivores and paleos and ketos, they say that, well, I don't see any evidence that we are frugivores, but we see evidence that we were carnivores and hunters. So they base these explanations on the different paintings that they find in some caves, in the places where the Neanderthals were living. Like they have little men running and chasing antelopes and deer and all these animals, mammoths even. But again, it's not the same. What is our human specific diet and eat and thrive on it versus what we can adapt to eat and evolve to eat? We have adapted, but that doesn't mean that it's optimal. So whoever argues that there is no evidence like painting when we are eating just fruit, well, maybe because we didn't even needed to do that. If they were living in caves, maybe because they were in cold weathers, right? So everything has an explanation. We're not evolved to eat this way. We have adapted, but that brings consequences, as we know. So that's something that I explained at the beginning. So people don't like, especially doctors, they don't like to support the idea of us being raw vegans. How many raw vegan medical doctors you see out there? I don't think many. The only doctors, MD trained allopathic medical doctors that I've seen that promote this lifestyle are two. Probably there are more, but two specifically, or contemporaneous. Dr. Brooke Goldner, she is a medical doctor. She healed herself of lupus by adopting a raw vegan diet. Now she's high raw, but she doesn't promote like an entirely 100% raw vegan diet, but she promotes a high raw vegan diet. The other doctor is Dr. Sarah Stancic. She healed herself of multiple sclerosis with a raw vegan diet. And again, she promotes high raw vegan diet. Again, it's not necessary to be raw to be super healthy, but the more the raw you are, the better. And I see that on myself, and I don't see myself going back. And I see that on many other raw vegans that are successful, and they don't see themselves going back, because there is a reason why this lifestyle brings a lot of vitality, awakening, and it keeps your energy up. I listened to John's previous recording, and this lifestyle is a matter of to get energy most of the time. So now I mentioned that book, Becoming Raw, is a guide for raw vegan diets by Brenda Davis. Brenda Davis is a nutritionist. She's from Canada. I think she's from British Columbia. And she has a TED Talk. You can access to it, go to YouTube. The link is in this video as well, so you can click on it. I'll share the file, and I also shared this Zoom video. But in that link, or you can just Google in your YouTube browser, she explained the myths and the realities of a raw vegan lifestyle. And she talks about enzymes, vitamins. Is cooked food toxic? What about phytochemicals? What about carcinogens in cooked food? What about all other processing methods to acquire all of our nutrients in a raw vegan diet? So let's start, breaking down some of them. So I'll just talk briefly about enzymes. So remember, in order to absorb our nutrients, we have different stages of digestion. So for example, I have a watermelon here, and if I eat a watermelon, there is a phase where that watermelon is gonna reach the fundus of my stomach. And it's gonna stay there for about 20 minutes before going down into the antrum and body of the stomach. So in those 20 minutes that is kind of stored, in the fundus of my stomach. So all the gastric juices get prepared in order to start the digestion. The enzymes in the watermelon are being utilized to break down the watermelon itself. So by the act of chewing that watermelon, I'm breaking down the cell walls of the watermelon. Every single watermelon bite has tons of watermelon cells, and those cells are being break down by mastication. And my amylase is a salivary enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates. Once it reaches the fundus of the stomach, it's going to stay there for 20 minutes, and the enzymes, the enzymes in the watermelon are going to help in the digestive process. So as soon as it reaches the antrum, and the body is almost fully digested by their own enzymes. So we don't need a lot of acidity in our stomach. What happens when we eat meat? The same process happens. So we eat meat, the saliva doesn't have digestive enzymes to break down protein until that piece of meat reaches our stomach. And in our stomach, we have to produce a lot of chloric acid to start breaking down the proteins in meat. So by the time that piece of meat that was storage for a little bit in the fundus reaches the body of the stomach, where most of the acid is concentrated, there is a lot of acid production. And that's why we have reflux, and a lot of things happen when we eat meat, especially if we combine meat with other stuff. So yeah, that's part of the reason why you never feel satisfied when you start transitioning to a raw vegan diet, because the digestion is super fast rather than being there stuck for a while. That happens with meat. The same happens with the vitamins. When we ingest raw foods, the vitamin activity stays intact. We don't break them down. If you cooked a watermelon or a tomato, yeah, we increase the lycopene and other nutrients, but some of the nutrients lose their vitamins. You denature the vitamins as well. The third point I want to reach or talk about is leukocytosis. Some raw foodists, especially the ones who are, very, very firm about like, oh my God, I don't want any cooked food because it's toxic. It induces leukocytosis. This idea comes from a scientist back in the 1930s, where he discovered that whenever we introduce cooked food in our stomach, there is a phenomenon that increases our white blood cell count in a very just for a little bit, and that they call it digestive leukocytosis. But it's nothing wrong with that. It's just a reaction of the body. The same happens if you ingest a very spicy raw vegan meal. You are kind of burning a little bit your stomach, and your white blood cell count increases because it's an inflammatory reaction. We're going to touch base on inflammation later on, but it's nothing to worry about unless you are ingesting deep fried junk food. Yes, you are inducing a lot of leukocytosis, but you are also introducing a lot of trans fats, a lot of glycated products that is gonna induce probably some cancers. So that's a topic for later, but nothing's gonna happen. My point is, nothing's gonna happen if you ingest steamed vegetables, for example, in your diet. It's a myth that cooked food is toxic, and this is just based on those observations back in 1930s. So now let's focus on inflammation. What is inflammation? You're gonna find a lot of different terminology in the naturopath community and in the natural hygiene community about inflammation. They call it mucus inducing, or they call it mucus, or they call it acidosis, right? They say, okay, the standard American diet is an acidotic diet. It's a mucus forming diet. Those are terms very valid from the naturopathic point of view, so people can understand. In medical terms, we call it inflammation. And inflammation can be of two types. The first type is acute, and the second type is chronic. So asthma, for example, the first trigger for an asthma attack is an acute inflammation. And then subsequent asthma attacks have to do with chronic inflammation. So for example, here, we have acute in the blue on the left-hand side of yours. Acute inflammation happens when something all of a sudden happens. For example, if I cut myself with a piece of glass or a piece of rusty metal, that piece of dirt is going to enter into my skin, and it's going to elicit an inflammatory response, meaning my defenses, my cells that are going to block any pathogen, any disease-inducing microorganisms are going to go to the war, and I say, okay, let's contain this. And in order for that to happen, they have to call enzymes and proteins and substances to contain that pathogen, something that causes disease. So they say, okay, blood vessels dilate, open up. We need a lot of white blood cells, leukocytes. That's another name for white blood cells, our defense cells. So the blood vessels open up. There's a lot of heat in the area. So you get the four inflammation words: rubor, calor, which is hot or something warm. You have dolor or dolor, which is pain. So everything happens at once in order to contain that inflammation, right? The same happens when you pinch yourself accidentally with a thorn or something. There is like a pus generation. Those are white blood cells trying to contain that. And that is self-resolved, right? We get whatever happens locally in our skin, we get a little blister or some redness, something, and it's contained because our immune system works perfectly. That's not a problem. What happens is when we eat constantly damaging foods, or I would call it foods because it's not foods, like if we eat at McDonald's every day, all the things are basically causing chronic inflammation. And the problem with the chronic inflammation is that we get so used to it. We get so used to it, we tolerate it. Like, for example, if I rub my skin constantly, right? If I rub this part of my forearm constantly, okay, right now it's red, that's acute inflammation. If I keep doing this, probably I'm gonna start developing like an ulcer in my skin. And then that ulcer is gonna get deeper and deeper, and my repair mechanisms are gonna say, hey, what's going on? Let's create a scar, let's create fibrosis, let's create a bigger defense. But since I tolerate this, my body is reacting and reacting more and more. And that hardness not only happens at the skin level. That very, very simple example is to tell you that whenever we ingest something that does not belong in the body, again, let's go back to the first slide. We adapt to it, but that doesn't mean that it belongs to us. And our bodies are very, they give us very subtle signs that we shouldn't be eating that way. Like we have indigestion, we have gas, we have bloating, we have diarrhea, we have constipation, we have bad mood, like low moods, or we are irritable. All these things, they're very subtle signals. And those are signs of chronic inflammation. And then at the end, if you keep smoking, you develop lung cancer. Smoking is a constant inflammatory insult to our lungs. The outcome is lung cancer. Same goes with alcoholism. People who drink a lot, constant inflammatory stimulus to the liver. In the end, what happens? Cirrhosis. Cirrhosis is scarring of the liver. Same goes with, let's see, something in the chat is popping up. Hardening the arteries, exactly. So when we eat standard American diets, we are pulling out calcium from our bones, trying to neutralize all that acidity or inflammation, and the arteries get hardened. That's why we have atherosclerosis. That's the medical term for hardened arteries. And if that's like repetitive enough, that hardening in the arteries of the heart is called obstruction of the coronaries, and you have infarcts. That happens in the brain as well. I'm a brain pathologist, and I see brain of individuals who probably didn't live a good life, and they have hardened arteries in their brain. So one of the things that I want you to take from this presentation as well is that the allopathic medical point of view of things have to disappear from your mind. John yesterday told you about the holistic approach that we are, touching base on these presentations, and that we want to let you know. But, it's just a matter of having that present, that health is holistic, and medicine and natural healing is not only, let's focus on what is good for the right eye or the left eye or my pinky toe, or it doesn't matter. Whatever you eat that is going to improve your vision, is going to improve your hair, is going to improve your joints, is going to improve everything, because we are made of the same cells, you know. Different cells have different expression. Some cells help you to see something, some cells help you to hear something, but at the end of the day, all of them are irrigated by the same blood vessels, and you want to protect all your cells in your body. Okay. So again, you know, a comparison: acute inflammation is self-limited, chronic inflammation is progressive. It's not noticeable, it's very subtle, but the consequences are devastating sometimes. So I have a Twitter account and I do my plant-based vegan propaganda right there. Let me see the chat sometimes. So thank you, John, for your for praising me here, for your compliments. So I wanted to say that, let's see if I can go back. Yes. So you can see there my tweet, my Twitter account. Now I changed it. I'm RawVeganDoctor on Twitter, because I'm so open that I don't care about what my ex-professors think of me. I don't care about why my ex-colleagues or ex-classmates think of me, because yes, I'm a vegan, I'm raw, and I'm a doctor. So I changed my tweet account to RawVeganDoctor. You can find me RawVeganDoctor everywhere. So on Twitter, I retweet this news. So I train at UCSF, University of California in San Francisco, and that's an ex-professor of mine. I never got some classes from her, but she was in the pathology department, and she's very, you know, appreciated by the students, and she got a grant. That's what scientists do. They have an idea, they write, okay, I need funds from the government so I can work on this experiment. So she applied for that grant and she got 26 million and a project that is going to prove the role of inflammation in cancer. So can you believe that? Do we have an answer for that? Of course we do. Chronic inflammation causes cancer. Again, what is smoking? It's just a constant inflammation and stimulus to the lungs that develop cancer. So yeah, and I tweeted this out, you know, chronic inflammation is directly responsible for several lethal cancers that results in 25% of cancer deaths worldwide. Raw vegan diets are anti-inflammatory by nature. Makes sense, isn't it? You know, just being sarcastic and see if my colleagues catch it, because the way we eat determines a lot the way we die, literally in all societies. So anyways, it was just like my little propaganda. They're trying to catch attention from the medical system, hopefully. Many people are hesitant about raw veganism. And remember Dr. Brooke Goldner, I mentioned that to you a few slides ago. She healed herself from lupus by adopting a raw vegan diet, and she published in this journal 6 weeks raw vegan nutrition protocol rapidly reverses lupus nephritis, a case series. So she gathered a couple of patients of hers, and she put them on a raw vegan diet, and the end stage of lupus, which is lupus nephritis, got reversed without need of steroids. Probably they still had steroids because that's the standard of treatment for patients with lupus, but a raw vegan diet reversed the latest stage of lupus. So that tells you a lot. I mean, lupus is an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia, Sjogren's syndrome, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's thyroid, all those are autoimmune disorders that can be controlled and sometimes reversed if you keep a low inflammatory diet. And a low inflammatory diet is a raw vegan diet, of course. So she basically measured all these parameters to determine if their kidneys were improving, and they did. So if you want to get access to this, you know, this is gonna be safe. You can get access to the whole article if you're interested in reading it. Now, from the anthropological point of view, many say, oh, you know, in order for our brains to develop and become so intelligent like we humans are, which I doubt, but apparently we are the most intelligent species on Earth. In order for our brains to grow exponentially, we have to eat a lot of fat, we have to eat a lot of meat. And basically the invention of fire and cooking our food gave us the capacity for our brains to grow. That's a theory, right? It's not proven, but it's accepted because that's how the system works. So if you accept a theory that by cooking our foods, we develop this big brain mass, right? This big brains of humans. Well, imagine by now we will be like geniuses, all of us, because we keep cooking our meals from many, many thousands and millions of years ago. So that doesn't make sense, right? And why I'm mentioning this to you is because here in this Science magazine, a very young researcher from New York University, she discovered an association of fruit consumption and big brain development. So, for example, she argues, or she puts in her thesis, that monkeys, our nearest cousins, they were basically chasing for the brightest, the tallest, the ripest fruit, and that gave them the capacity to navigate through the tropics, through the trees, and that gave them the spatial stimulation to climb the trees, to look for the color, develop your smell, go and chase the biggest, sweetest fruit, things like that. So she argues that in her thesis, and that's another thing that supports the raw vegan lifestyle, fruit-based lifestyle. Let's see. Thank you for your comments. Yes, I'll read them afterwards. So this is the article. This is a something written for the lay person, it's in Nature. You can follow her on Twitter. Her name is Alex de Cassian, and she's basically, proposing this theory that fruit was actually the ones who gave us the brain size that we have nowadays. Now, one of my topics that are a favorite of mine is the microbiome. Did you know that we are 1/10 of the bacteria, viruses, and parasites that we harbor in our bodies? Let's say that we have 100 cells, right? Bacterial cells and human cells. Well, out of those 100 cells, 90 cells are microbiome, bacteria, viruses, and parasites, and 10 are human cells. So we are more bacteria, more microbiome than humans, actually. And we harbor a lot of these microorganisms in our skin to begin with, in our mucosas, in our tubes. We are full of tubes, the respiratory tubes, the auditory tubes, the genital tubes, the urinary system, the digestive tract is our biggest tube, and all of them are lined and covered by microbiome. So what you feed is actually the bacteria that is living with you. Imagine that. So anytime that you crave a donut or French fries or McDonald's or whatever, your favorite junk food, it's actually the microbiome that you're harboring that you haven't get rid of in order to avoid those cravings. So that's why it's super important that when you're transitioning into any healthier lifestyle, you get strong and you're like, okay, I'm going to endure this craving. Either I substitute it for something healthier, or I just resist it and face it and confront it and go through the pain of, facing my cravings, or whatever you have to do, because you have to let die of these parasites. That's what the natural hygiene say. Oh yeah, you have parasites. Well, it's the bad microbiome that is craving this stuff, right? So we are more bacteria than human cells. Remember that. So you want to feed your bacteria, you want to feed your little critters that you have all over your body with the good stuff, so you can propitiate the development and proliferation of the good bugs that are going to keep you happy. Because at the end of the day, the microbiome are in charge of producing the good feeling hormones that we need. So that's part of the presentation. I'm going to move to the other part because I have other opinions here. So biohacks to keep you in the raw vegan lifestyle. Let's see, presenter mode. So I gave you all this background just to convince you, at least hopefully, to adapt this lifestyle and why it's important and all the principles. We get all the nutrients, we get all the vitamins, we get all the proteins, carbohydrates, and fatty acids. All of them are the essential components of our bodies. We don't need protein to build protein. We need amino acid to build protein. And amino acids are everywhere. I'll share with you a link where you can track your food, so you are not worried like, oh my God, am I gonna get protein deficient? Or no, everything is in fruits and vegetables. You have nothing to worry about. Okay, so biohacking. What is biohacking? It's the practice of changing our chemistry and our physiology through science and self-experimentation, so we can improve our way of living, and not trying to take shortcuts, but actually, having the knowledge to apply those systems and tricks to make our lives easier, right? So we can use biohacking to self-improve ourselves, and it comes from knowing about nutrition, having that knowledge and putting it into practice. So John, talk about a lot of these factors, right? Health is holistic. It's not only diet. Obviously, I'm focusing on the diet point of view because diet is a big factor that we can modify. I mean, right now, at this moment, I cannot control the chemtrails, right, that are spraying on my skies. I don't know if you believe in chemtrails, but I don't have any other explanation for that. But I don't have control over it. What I have control over is like what kind of food I decide to put into my body. And that's going to biohack and improve whatever gas, is in the atmosphere, whatever trash or anything that is another environmental factor that I have no control over. My diet, my thoughts, my habits, my sleep pattern, my exercise, my work ethic, having like the ergonomics mindset. I'll talk about that later, tomorrow, sorry. But it's just like implementing all the systems to make our lives easier and becoming healthier, a healthier version of ourselves. So how can you implement a raw vegan diet? Focus on the carbs, right? A plant-based diet is carbon-based. That's what Dr. T. Colin Campbell, the author of the China study, the biggest longitudinal observational study that proves the superiority of a plant-based diet, that's what he recommends. Carbohydrates is our main fuel. You can be raw vegan and get the simplest carbohydrates, rich in water, rich in fiber. You can be a cooked vegan eater and get your carbohydrates from cooked or steamed veggies, starches basically. Legumes are a little bit hardened to digest, but if you're still into legumes, nothing wrong with that. But prefer a fruit-based diet. Fruit is numero uno, fresh, ripe, seasonal, local, and if possible, organic. I do organic fruits, only the ones that are like the berries. I always choose organic. I don't care about the bananas. I don't care about the oranges. I don't care about the watermelon because those have peel hard enough to avoid the contamination with pesticides. So you have that. Our main fuel is carbohydrates. Number 2 in the list of preference is obviously steamed, boiled, or baked starches, tubers, roots, fungi, veggies, cruciferous veggies. So all of them you can steam and cook in order to make them more digestible. Nothing wrong with that, but remember, don't fry them, don't roast them. Anything that gives you like this brown toasted appearance is carcinogen. Obviously, it's not like smoking, but in the long run, if you are just eating like this roasted material, that's N-glycation products, and that's associated with cancer. So prefer steamed, boiled, or baked. Keep the fats low. The ketogenic diet is completely the opposite. They don't use carbohydrates, they only use fat. But that's basically putting our organisms under stress, because at the end of the day, the ketos, what they do is they biohack their system in order to produce carbohydrates through a lengthy process. At the end, they need carbohydrates. That's what their body do when they go into ketogenesis. So what we do now here with our high carb, low fat diet is the reverse. We just get directly from the plants the carbohydrates that we need. And yes, we need a little bit of fat. We are some of us are women, and we need fat for healthy skin, healthy hair, healthy nails, but not a lot. So I follow this approach of the 80-10-10 for fat consumption, 10 being 10% of fats, and that's it. So how can you determine how much you are ingesting of fat? You can have the awareness, something that fits in your palm. It could be a half of an avocado. If it fits in your palm, that's a good measure. Same with an avocado, like chunks of coconut, that's your daily dose of fat. Whatever fits in your palm of nuts and seeds, that's your daily dose of fat. depends on the fat source. It's not the same as having like a palm of pumpkin seeds versus a palm of cashews. Cashews are high fat, less digestible. So just be aware what kind of fat you're ingesting. So this is a comparison of the fats that we ingest. Many people ask me, is extra virgin olive oil allowed in a raw vegan diet? Well, you can eat whatever you want, but I'll just give you an example of the differences in the fat. So we have olive oil in the middle of this table. It has 14% of saturated fat, 10% of linoleic acid, 1% of oleic acid. So it's not that bad compared to the coconut oil. Many people think that coconut oil, because it's all healthy, and you see it in the stores, you see it in Whole Foods, you see it in your organic section, produce or aisle in the groceries, is healthy, but it's not. Especially if you eat raw coconut or you cook with coconut oil, it's not good for you. It's actually less healthy than butter, believe it or not. So if you are gonna use oils, prefer the ones who are on the top, because they're low in saturated fats and high in omegas. So the more yellow it has on the bar, the better. So prefer those, but I don't use oil at all. It's not necessary. So omega-6 versus omega-3. Omega-3 is super important to have it because we produce the EPA, DHA, and other essential fatty acids. And omega-3s are basically located in leafy greens. Some fruits have omega-3s. And I focus on chia seeds, flax seeds, and hemp seeds as my sources of omega-3. And I don't eat them daily, but probably every other day. I just throw a spoon of chia seeds in my smoothie or flax seeds, and I'm fine. Some people say, okay, I'm just gonna eat peanuts or peanut butter or almond butter. Well, those are rich in omega-6. Remember, we want a concentration of omega-3 higher than omega-6. So what about protein? You don't have to worry about protein. So this is where I touch base on chronometer.com, because I just wanna show you, this is a breakdown of what I eat in a day, for example. So I added in this website, again, is chronometer.com without H. So just like that, chronometer.com. And you can enter all the food that you ate. So this is an example of my food during the day. I didn't eat all at once. I was tracking as soon as I ate something. And then it gave me a total of, you can see in the bottom left, 2266 calories during the day. I burned 2156, so that gave me a calorie surplus of 110 calories, which I probably will be wasting just by talking. So I don't worry about that. I'm not gonna gain weight. Calories is just like a parameter to know what we are doing, but it's not like standard. We need to learn to trust our bodies, and that happens with time. But just to give you a breakdown, if you see here in the just next to the circles, the calories consumed, calories burned, then the balance, and then you have the breakdown of energy. The proteins were 83%, 83% net carbohydrates and 104%. No, this is not what I want to show you. Where is it? Well, I think I need to go to Chronometer, because basically the breakdown is telling me that I consume 10% of protein, 10% of fat, and 80% of carbohydrates. I don't know why the percentages here are a little bit high. Actually, these are the targets, the macronutrient targets. This is not what I ingested. Okay, now I remember how this is interpreted. So if you focus on the circle that is in the left lower corner, right, where my 2266 kilocalories are breakdown. So the red, as you can see in the little table, are the carbs. And you can see that it represents the majority of my nutrients, the carbs, the red line. The green represents the fat, and then the blue represents the protein. So I keep my fat between 10 to 15%, some days less, some days more, but not higher than 20 or 15%. So that's just an example of what I eat. And as you can see in the list of what I ingested, oranges, celery, chia seeds, dates, blueberries, bananas, arugula, kale, almonds, coconut, honeydew melon, water, walnuts and pumpkin seeds were used like a tiny bit. So probably I exceeded fat that day, but it doesn't matter because most of the time I keep my diet in the low fat range. And you can see now on the right side, all the columns, all my nutrients being, met, all my requirements. Some of the calcium, probably today I got 60% of calcium if you focus on the table on the right bottom side. Iron, I got 82%, but probably tomorrow I'm going to ingest more leafy greens. The point with this is that you don't need to eat 100% of all the nutrients every single day, because the body is so wise that it stores different nutrients for different needs for different days. So it's not that you have to, oh, today I didn't get my calcium, it's only 50%. Well, tomorrow you get more, right? It's just, we have to divorce ourselves like, oh my God, I didn't get my protein today. I'm missing out my fats, or I didn't get my omegas. Just let's divorce ourselves from that mentality and just get the calories in. I know John talks about fasting. We are actually overeating, so nothing's going to happen to you. Believe me, your body is going to be able to recycle the things that you need. So this is a breakdown of the amino acids. You can see the green lines, the green rows are basically exceeding my expectations, right? I had a lot of amino acids, cysteine, histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, all those are amino acids. And my requirements are met. Again, 83% of protein, doesn't matter. My body is wise enough to produce its own protein if I don't meet the requirements. I'm not promoting under eating. As you can see, I ate more calories that I burn. So that's gonna give me enough power, enough energy. And then the importance of eating a variety of foods is gonna fulfill all your requirements, if that makes sense. So some people say, well, but what you eat in a day? In my Instagram, I have some examples of what I eat in a day, and you can get some tips from there. Another biohack that I want to share with you is the greens. Many people don't get satisfied with fruit, and I understand. Sometimes we don't need a lot of sweetness in our diet. We need a little bit of bitterness, or some sort of savory, which is coming from the leafy greens, because the leafy greens have a lot of minerals. So if you don't like leafy greens just like that, you can eat plenty of them by putting in your juices, in your smoothies, in your salads, in your snacks, or in your dressings. In your dressings, prefer the ones that are not so bitter, like spinach, for example, or romaine lettuce. Those are very neutral in flavor. Vitamins come from food. The only vitamins that I will put emphasis on is B12 supplementation. It's controversial. Many people don't believe that, but if you're transitioning, I think it's necessary. Many people who are in the standard American diet don't even pay attention to this, because everything comes with supplements. Your cereal box is full of vitamins. Your bread is full of vitamins. And when you transition into raw vegan diet, until your body gets used to assimilation of these vitamins from organic food, etc., you have to supplement. And I still supplement with B12. Vitamin D, we get it from the sun. Iodine, I eat a lot of seaweed. It's covered, and all these minerals, calcium, selenium, manganese, zinc, and iron, it's coming from my plants. So nothing to worry about that. The vitamin B12 can be administered in the sublingual way, in a spray, intramuscular injections, or pills. And vitamin D, you can get it directly from the sunlight, 20 minutes every day, it's enough. If you live in the tropics, if you live in cold weathers like Norway or Russia, well, you can get a UV light lamp, for example. And in the worst case scenario, supplements. So I have a few videos about it in my old YouTube channel. If you follow me, you probably already saw them. Let's see. So this is one of the last slides, epigenetics. If you take something out of this presentation, besides everything I said, I just want to emphasize that we have the capacity to transform our lives through diet, through meditation, through positive affirmations, through changing the way we feel towards others, by forgiving. At the end of the day, the purpose of a healthy way of living is to live in harmony, right? Is to avoid the genetic predisposition that we are carrying from our parents to be expressed. Like my mom, just a very personal example. My mom passed away of breast cancer when I was 6 years old. And that probably was the cornerstone for me deciding to be a medical doctor. Probably my subconscious mind told me in my adolescence, you need to find the cure for cancer, and I went into medical school just trying to be a better human, to help people, etc. But my mom passed away when she was 35 years old. So she probably had some genetic defect that made her more susceptible for breast cancer. Who knows? She was not a smoker. She was relatively healthy. She was born at 7 months. I don't know if that's a risk factor. So just to tell you that example, that because of my mom high risk, I have a high risk factor because I have direct inheritance of those genes that probably gave me the susceptibility to develop breast cancer myself. So I can proudly say, that I have been living more years on this earth than my mom. Probably now my age, but um, I am not aware, or I'm not concerned about getting breast cancer because I know the epigenetics. I know that through epigenetics, we can modify our susceptibilities, personal deficiencies, personal weaknesses. That's how Dr. Morse addresses this, susceptibilities. Weaknesses. All of us have weaknesses. Some people have propensity to develop diabetes more than others, especially Black people, Latin American people, people from Alaska, or Native Americans, or mixed races. I don't know why, evolution, adaptation, who knows? But they have more susceptibility. But epigenetic means that it's something that is above our genome. No matter how many weaknesses or susceptibility factors we inherited from our parents or grandparents, we have the capacity to bypass that fate, that destiny, and implement all these factors in order to suppress the bad genes and enhance the expression of good genes. So that can be achieved through diet, through our psychological state of mind, social interactions, alternative medicine, yoga, meditation, radiotherapy, not radiotherapy like, the hospital, but sunlight, basically, uh, enhancing the development of our right microbiome, exercise, financial status, having the economic abundance to afford a healthy lifestyle. You have to fight for it, unfortunately, but you have to improve ourselves in order to eat this way. It has to be your priority rather than having next generation cell phone. Focus on your diet, invest in it. So we can definitely modify our fate. That is written in our genes. That's not our destiny. I'm telling you, we can modify those factors. So this is just a table of the different dietary components that are anti-cancer that are found in vegetables and veggies, and also letting you know about the meditation and the exercise effect. We have our own internal cannabinoid system, and we can get access through them through exercise, deep breathing, meditation, etc. So with that, I finished this presentation, and I'm very, very happy to answer all your questions. Thank you very much. All right, so I have here in the chat a lot of things. So let's go. I'm gonna go scroll all the way up. Let's see. John the Past, this is a very special aid. Thank you. Hardening the arteries, we talk about that. Thank you, thank you. John says, Dr. Amen talks about dinosaur brain when we eat sad. Big body, small brain. That's right, John. I agree with that. I did raw fruitarian diet, 80-10-10 for 2 weeks, and I felt better than ever. I had no pain and boundless energy. I want to get back to that. Well, we are here. Olina Taylor, we can do that. Joan, to everyone, the book Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, Epigenetics. Exactly, that's what we're talking about. Thoughts become things. John was talking about that yesterday, and there's nothing more truthful than that. Regarding cell phones, what are your thoughts on electromagnetic frequencies? Oh my God. These things are another source of poison. I keep them in airplane mode as much as I can, and I don't sleep next to it. I put it far away. I turn off my modem, my Wi-Fi receptor. We have to biohack our environment. There is no other way. And I think the less exposure we got to electromagnetic frequencies, the better. I don't use microwave. I don't watch television. and I am trying to limit my exposure to the phone because it's dangerous. Uh, John said that already. Jenny, did I hear you say that carbohydrates are carbons? Carbohydrates can have carbons in their structure, Jenny. Caps don't mean I'm shouting. No, I don't. I didn't understand that. Other Zoom classes use caps to bring attention to questions so they are not mistaken from general chat. Okay, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, carbohydrates, as the name implies, are made of chains of carbon. That's the main skeletal structure, and then it has some hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen attached to it, but they are made of carbon. Yes, we are diamonds, basically. Did you know that? What are your thoughts on grounding sheets? I haven't tried them. Probably they're good. I have no idea. If you buy them, if you can give us some input, that will be appreciated. I mean, I've seen some reviews. They said that they're good. But if you have a garden, I would rather walk barefoot before going to bed. Or if it's not cold outside, I think that's a good way of grounding. Feet on the ground. How to reverse chronic inflammation? If you implement all the things that I spoke about, start with your diet. Don't rush. Don't run. Don't want to run a marathon when you can barely crawl. Don't want to do everything overnight. If you get something out of this presentation and you can revisit it again and again, you can catch more pearls every day to start implementing these changes. If you eat the right way, if you meditate, if you do all the things that I mentioned on the latest slides, you will definitely lower your inflammatory levels. It's a daily practice, etc. Yeah, exactly, John. It's a daily practice. I live on the second floor. Earthing pads are highly effective. Okay. Thank you, Art. So guys, I'm going to stay here for more questions. I'm excited to answer all of them, really. I hope this was a nice experience for you. I really wanted to cover more, but I know that information overload is a thing. So I would rather let you that information sink and you can start implementing day after day. The new 5G technology installed on my meter outside my bedroom. Oh my God, I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about the 5G. Many people think that it's going to be neutralized by aliens. Other people think that 5G is going to be not so bad. It's actually good. Some people say like, oh, we're gonna live in a microwave and they're gonna kill us with heat and we're gonna get bombarded. To be honest with you, I think our civilization and humanity, we have way greater potential that we have been told about our capabilities. So I think if there's a maleficent or darkness in our world, I think if there is darkness, there is light as well. So if they're gonna cook us all in this radiation field, I think there's also people and good intentioned beings trying to neutralize that. And we are so powerful that we can actually neutralize a lot of things, no matter how many 5Gs you have around. I mean, this hopefully is not just wishful thinking, but I think we are so capable of neutralizing things. And if we start seeing something, we need to do something. I mean, you can just throw rocks at them. I'm just kidding. But, I wouldn't worry that much unless there is something that happens. I don't want to fall into the political discussion about it, but definitely there's something to watch and keep an eye on it. And, gather with your community if you don't want them around you. So I don't have all the answers, but I like to see the glass full, half full rather than half empty. So I believe that it's not going to happen, like the mass killing of humans. We're not going to allow that to happen. You think there's a connection between building soil health and gut health? Carbon and nitrogen are needed to build soil health. So it seems that carbohydrates and greens would be what the gut microbiome needs to thrive. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We need a combination of fruits and veggies and leafy greens. That's why many raw foodies or frugivores fail, because they don't get a lot of minerals in their diet coming from leafy greens. So it's a must. I eat a lot of leafy greens, to be honest. What do you feel is the best water to drink? I think the purest, the better. I think rainwater is better. probably water that is running from the mountains, spring water. There's a lot of controversy. Some people say distilled water. That's the only way that you can decalcify yourself. It's controversial, but I think the purest, the better. And if you drink distilled and alternate here and there with spring water, I think that's fine. I honestly don't worry too much. In the past, I used to worry a lot, like, oh, I only need distilled water. Yeah, but what's better, not eating, fasting, or drinking a gallon of distilled water every day? You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, is improving your body, making it more, how can I say? I'm blinking here now. Yeah, having kind of like a biohacking your body so much and getting used to just a small amount of nutrients, so you can worry less about the water that you consume. Obviously, the cleaner the better. There is no option. I mean, reverse osmosis, filter water, distilled water if you want, but don't obsess over it. That's my personal point of view. What are your thoughts on alkaline water? No alkaline water at all. Remember Ravana? Ravana has this company of bottles that make water alkaline. We don't need alkaline water. We don't. Alkaline water comes from fruits and vegetables, and that's enough. That's my personal and very strong question or answer about it. Clean water, fruits have lots of distilled water, etc. Yep. All right, let's see more people. We have a few people here. 16 people, actually. One waiting. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm gonna admit that person. I missed that. I'm sorry for whoever joined now. Home, I'm so sorry. I didn't give you access because I was busy delivering the presentation, but this is gonna be uploaded to our Facebook group. Okay. All right, guys, if you don't have any other questions, let me know. John, do you wanna say something? I can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say how wonderful that was. I'm so glad that we did this together.
Yay.
So nice, so wonderful, great information, and it's good to have the credibility of a doctor that's a real doctor, that's looked at all of the schooling of being a doctor and has come to realize that it's not only about all of the things that you learn about in school and science, and
yeah,
there's something more, there's something greater to it than that, right? There's an energy here. I love it.
yeah,
I love it. And it's shining through you. It's so wonderful to see. Thank you.
yeah. And I didn't want to go through my whole story, why I came to realize this lifestyle. I have so many videos that talk about it, but just briefly, I am a pathologist, and I realized early on in my medical education in Mexico. I studied medicine in Mexico, and the Western medicine has infiltrated all countries. That's why I can practice in the States and I can practice in the UK, because it's the same medical system. So just to say that my credentials are legitimate, in the allopathic medical community. When I was a medical intern in Mexico, I realized, you know what, I want to do something that actually helps people, because hospitals are basically places where people go to either die or just get less complicated or just get a band-aid, right? That's what hospitals are. And I said, I want to solve problems. So I'm going to be a surgeon, because they actually solve problems. And one of the surgeons, one of my mentors, told me, you know what, look around. How many women that are surgeons you see? Well, maybe 3 out of 20, right? And he said, do you see yourself being like them, like these 3 women surgeons? And, taking away the feminist or the misogynist point of view, call it that way. I just saw them, and they were very masculine. They were very, they lack the warmth, they lack the human touch, because they were surgeons. They really have to have this mechanistic, masculine mind, I guess. And I look at them and they were not happy. And I said, I don't want to become like that. You know, many of us say it's not going to happen to me, but the system makes you that way. And I said, okay, I'm going to choose something that is not invasive to the patients, that is not being a slave of the pharmaceuticals, is not being a slave of the insurance company. So what can I do? Well, I choose pathology, because that way I don't have to deal with patients, which, you know, by the way, they're so used to the band-aid. If you talk about change your ways of living, they don't pay attention to you. They just come for their band-aid. So I really appreciate all of you that are taking a stand, that are taking the decision to improve your lives and go against the grain and the daily grind. You know, like the whole system is failing. We notice that. So I congratulate you that you're taking action, because just as I decided to not run away entirely from the system, but just step back and say, I don't want to be participant of this pharmaceutical industry. I'm going to be a pathologist. I'm going to get samples. I'm going to get tissues. I'm going to make diagnosis. I'm going to do autopsies. Have nothing to do with prescribing. So that really, really was a great decision. So at this moment, you know, I am so glad that I got all these chronic conditions. I didn't even explain what happened to me in terms of health, but I discovered raw veganism along my medical education since 20 years ago. I've been in medical school since 20 years ago, medical system, courses, updates, you know, and I don't see Western medicine changing unless we change it from within, and that has to come from patients. That happens with the plant-based doctors movement. Doctors got convinced because their patients took actions, and they got curious, and they were like, wow, you healed your coronary artery disease by eating the right way. Let's study you. And that's how you have the converts. So I don't think, you know, we need to run away to an island, but we need to change the system from within. And it's not only doctors. If you are in any area of human development, human careers, human ways of living and doing things, you should interfere. You are empowered. You should take this knowledge and disseminate this in your family, in your circle, and we're going to change the world that way. So thank you for being here and for taking the initiative to change your lives. We have some more questions. um, good points. What is your favorite raw salad dressing? My favorite raw salad dressing is a quarter of an avocado with some lemon juice, some spices. It depends every day. Some days I put paprika, some days I put black pepper, some days I put just lemon juice, probably a little bit of mango or zucchini, something that is more neutral and it's gonna give it like a creamy consistency. Along with that quarter of an avocado, and probably if I want it to look green, I throw in some spinach. If I want it to look orange, I throw in some red bell pepper. So that's basically my main, oh, and some onion on it. That's my favorite smoothie. Very simple, not smoothie, but dressing. Avocado lime with cilantro makes a good dressing. Exactly. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Areli for president. Okay, I have to move first to the States to be president, because here in the UK they have a monarch. So I don't think I can become a queen. I'm a queen in my own terms, but not necessarily a queen of England, thankfully. I have thought of wanting to move to an island. Yeah, if you have the option to do that, do so, please. You know, I just feel like if we are stuck in the city, we shouldn't be feeling unfortunate or wishing to be somewhere else if we can do actually a lot in the cities that we are living, because the islands cannot contain the whole human species, right? We have to develop systems in our own communities in order to make this lifestyle happening, and it's happening. I mean, we have imports, we have fruits. It's just a matter of investing in this way of living, and the markets are going to change because people change. So okay, I guess that's all the questions that we got. I see someone driving. That's funny. And we can influence people if we move away. Exactly. Same with me. If I run away from the medical system, which honestly, I'm really eager to do so. But if I'm not representing the movement from within, you know, nobody's going to get influenced. So I need this. I think people need more vegan doctors and raw vegan doctors. How long do you fast for daily or 1 day per week? I do intermittent fasting. I try to do 14 to 16 hours if I do exercise, and if I have to do a lot of work, probably I do 14 to 15. But during the weekends, I do probably 18. So I start my first meal around noontime, and I stop eating around 4 or 5. That's when I have the time and the right circumstances. If I'm at work, I have a full-time job, like not 9 to 5, it's sometimes 8 to 5. um, I I break my fast around 10 or 11, and I finish eating when I come home at 6. That's my last meal. So between 14 and 16. And like I'm trying to eat less during the weekends, but I go for my long runs during the weekends. I'm a runner, so I get hungry. But I know it's possible, so it's just a matter of determination. I want to have 6 packs. I want to have like a super lean body, but I'm working. Everybody has something to work on, and that's probably some of my goals. So I can be like a Sports Illustrated model, and raw vegan example. I'm just kidding. That's not. John is gonna help me with that, right? Yeah. All right, guys. So I think that's it, right? Okay, thank you so much for attending. This is recording, so this is gonna be uploaded. And thank you so much. I can see all of you smiling. I return to you that smile. You're welcome, Roberta Phillips. Thank you so much, everyone. So you're welcome. You're welcome, guys. All right, so I'm gonna cut this and talk to you tomorrow. Okay, get ready tomorrow. Bye.